And the whole point of this particular, let me see if I can.
Hey, Jim, we can hear you but not see you. Oh, there you are. Okay.
There. I poked the wrong. So as I was saying, we're in the 11th chapter. The cosmic vision, the vision of the divine form. And the intent of this chapter is to see the self in and through all the objects of the world. And this is all mystic symbolism. It's not to be thought of literalistically. Otherwise, we think, oh, in order to see the cosmic form, I've got to have this. Sounds like a drug trip, an acid trip or something like that. You know, these beings and those beings and Krishna with 1,000 mouths and stomachs and arms. No, doesn't mean that at all. What it means is every person, every being, every object is consciousness. Every event, every experience is consciousness. This becomes easy to understand if we go to the dream state. I like to say, you are the God of your dream, your mini Ishvara in the dream. So in the dream, you have a dream body, a locus from which you view a dream world, a dream ego identified with that dream body, and people, places, things, and conditions outside, thoughts and feelings inside. But are you in the dream, or is the dream in you? Very important question. Do you incarnate into a dream? Oh, I was so-and-so in a past life, and oh, I've been so bad, I'm going to have a terrible life my next incarnation. If you approach the spiritual teaching with that viewpoint, it's because you think you are in the dream, rather than understanding that the dream is in you. Just as it feels like I'm in the dream, it seems so very real. So it feels like I'm in the body. And all this seems so very real. And what Krishna has thundered in this chapter is, actually, they are all in me. Now, we have something that's profoundly paradoxical. We have these two viewpoints. Shankara says, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Brahman alone is real, the phenomenal world's an illusion. Vaitatya, false. Pratibimba, like the reflection in a mirror. But Chandogya Upanishad thunders, Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma. Sarvamidam, all this Kalu, verily, is Brahma. we reconcile? Close your eyes for a moment and visualize a mango. Now open your eyes. You are the material cause of the mango. You made it out of the fabric of your mind. You are the instrumental cause of the mango. Where did you make it? In me. Who did it? I did. So also all this, the material cause of the universe is Brahman. What's the instrument that the Lord uses? Brahman. Who did it? Brahman. Now, what's the difference between visualizing a mango and dreaming about it? In the dream, my mind is first covered by ignorance. We can call it mini Maya. And because of that, that ignorance is called deep sleep. Then when the mind imagines, I think it's real. But both are imagination. So the Lord himself is not deluded by his creation. You and I are not so lucky. Some of us, if we inquire into it, can be free. That's the intent of this chapter. In the spiritual life, we want to answer three questions. The first, Koham, who am I? Some people get a sense, oh, I am that witnessing consciousness. That's the ground of being, I get it. And they think that's all there is. No. We have to then see the self in and through all the objects of the world. What is this world and how is it come about? Otherwise, we have a tendency, oh, this terrible world, I can't stand it. Leave me alone, I want to meditate. Any of you gone there? That's because you have yet to fully see the self in and through all the objects. And the practice is tune up the mind. Practice what we call sadhikalpa samadhi, keeping the mind intensely introverted while you are functioning in the world. And then all the data, all the information, positive, negative, neutral, just let it pass through. Abhyasa and Vairagya. I stole that from the Yoga Sutra. Those two together. This intense renunciation and practice. Then what do we see about name and form? They are all transient. They are all temporary. And Krishna has also begun to imply and inform that he is the agent. My stupid little ego that thinks I am choosing this, and I am choosing that, and my decisions are so consequential. It's all vanity. It's all vanity. It's all guna and karma, qualities of mind and the force of the past. The illusion of an individual free will agent. My favorite example is like the drum major in front of a marching band. He's got the big puffy hat with a stick, leading the band. If you're in the band, you're not watching the drum major. You're reading your music and you're staying in step and listening to your fellow musicians. So, drum major, your band's going down the street. The drum major decides to make a left turn. The band keeps going. Then ego, ooh, I got it back in front of the band. That's what our ego does. Another one of my favorite examples. Have any of you read The Little Prince?
Yes.
You know, when he lands on the planet and there's the king and he says, I'm a very powerful king. I can order any one of my subjects to do anything. I go to the edge of my world and I command the sun to come up in the morning. But I'm a very benevolent king. I would never command one of my subjects to do something it cannot do. The Little Prince says after this conversation, I think I'm going to go now. The king says, no, I command you to say. He says, no, I'm going to go. And he gets in this plane. So the king says, okay, I command you to go. That's ego. I'm going to move to Chicago. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do that. And it's all just guna and karma. And then the major point he's been working on the past few verses is where he says, I have already killed not only the sons of Dhritarashtra, the Kauravas, but Bhishma and Drona, and the Pandavas. They're sticking in the teeth. It's everything passes. I was talking with a young man yesterday. He says, oh, Jim, I want to make a difference. I want to do something significant in the world. That's the Lord's decision. But I promise you, in 100 years, no one will care. Swamiji's teacher, Swami Tapovan, I think there's only one sadhu alive who knew him in the body. He didn't hide a whole lot. He didn't found this or that. He's a memory. And in another 20, 30 years, nothing. That's what's in store. Any thoughts on this before we go on?
He said there was 3 points.
3 questions?
He said there was,
Yes. Who am I? What is this world? And how has it come about? Those are the 3 questions we have to answer. I'm sorry if I didn't make that clear. How does it come about? By means of sankalpa. It is imagined, not created. And the substratum is never changed. Krishna's never touched. Which means you are never touched. Which means if you have a parent who seemingly died recently, the body went. But at one level, the subtle body even has not gone. And for sure, the self of that is not touched at all. All right, next verse, or first verse, 31.
Sure. Akhyahi me ko bhavanu nugraru. Sorry, this is the long meter. My apologies.
The whole verse practically is the double meter, yes.
Yeah. Akhyahi me ko bhavanu grupo namostute deva vara prasida vigyatumichhami bhavantamadhyam nahi prajanami tava pravrittim. Tell me who you are, so fierce in form. Salutations to you, O God Supreme. Have mercy. I desire to know you, the original being. I know not indeed your purpose.
So I think that started out with an Arjuna Uvacha.
No, I think we started with Arjuna Vacha slightly
Okay,
earlier.
so this is Arjuna saying, so he's inquiring, okay, Saka to me the deepest, summarize it, what's the meaning of this divine form? Going on.
So verse 32.
Yes, please.
Shri Bhagwan Vacha Kalosmi loka kshayakrit pravriddho lokan samahartumiha pravrittah ritte pitwamna bhavishyanti sarve ye vasthita pratyanikeshu yodha. The blessed Lord said, I am the mighty world-destroying time, now engaged in destroying the worlds. Even without you, none of the warriors arrayed in hostile armies shall live.
Yes. So, Mahakala, all-devouring, terrible, world-destroying time. I guarantee you, if you were not here, everybody in your life is going to die. Everyone does. Everything does. Civilizations. Oh, we're going to have the end of the liberal democracy. Autocracy is going to take over. We've got to be save it. We've got to save it. Don't worry. I promise you, it will pass anyway. Because everything passes. Maybe not in yours or my lifetime. Maybe this is the time. Oh, I'm smart. But I do know that all forms come to an end. So the Buddhists frequently invite us to meditate on the impermanence of things. This is what the verse is implying. It's not just people who are destroyed. It's worlds, it's everything. Now, here's an important practice that's implied with this verse. One of the forms that exists in the Jagat is called a mind state. Happy, I'm sad, I'm confused, I'm lustful, I'm angry, I'm at peace. Don't worry, it will pass because it's a form. because it's a form. All forms pass. So those of us who may have taken a meditation retreat where you sit for 10, 12 hours a day for, say, a week or 2 weeks or so, who's done something like that? One of the things you see is the impermanence of a mind state. So, for example, if it's like a Vipassana retreat and you're sitting and all of a sudden you've got an itch on your nose, what do they tell you to do? Okay. Yeah. And what happens? Goes away. So if a bunch of sadness about something comes up, what do they tell you to do? Watch it. And what happens to it? Goes away. Yeah. Now, when you get back into the world and you have a absolute irksome fellow as a boss, we forget that ire will go away if you just watch it. I'm in the wrong place. I should be someplace else. You can move. But I promise you, if you watch it, it will go away. I promise you. Don't promise many things in this world. But I promise you, all mind states, without exception, are temporary. But something there is that is not temporary. When are you ever not? So Shiva is ever wedded to his Shakti. Shakti is the world, the prana from which all this stuff is made, Prakriti. We've got Diwali coming up. We have Lord Ram consciousness. We have Hanuman. What does Hanuman symbolize? Anybody know? The mind. So powerful, it can do anything. I love where he goes to get the herb. That's what it looks like. So he takes the whole mountain. Go from hither to thither, fly anywhere. That's the mind. Always changing. We, even in English, people talk about the monkey mind. It's always changing. But when is the mind satisfied? Have you ever seen those images, those drawings of Hanuman embracing Ram? Ram's face is usually very neutral. Hanuman is just list out the mind to the self. Now, in one of the books, Questions and Answers with Nisargadatta Maharaj, one of the disciples there, who asks Maharaj, are you in samadhi all the time? You know what his answer was? Of course not. It's a mind state. But his identity is the absolute, never changes. This world is temporary. And the way the Lord has created it, because he's all devouring, all destroying, terrible time. Now, this should not be approached with, oh, it's so sad, everything's gonna go away. No. The invitation is dive in and cherish life with the firm knowledge of how incredibly fleeting it is. And there are times we do this because we are so clear about how transient things are. The greatest example is a sunset. You go see a beautiful sunset. It is gorgeous to see a beautiful sunset. Such beauty. But how long do they last? 10, 15 minutes? It's gone. But nobody, oh, sun, come back, come back. We do that with other things in our lives. Or even more tragic. I'm not going to get involved because I'm afraid it'll disappear. That's not true renunciation. That's fear. Are you catching what I mean by that? All right, next verse. That was 32, was it not?
Yes.
That's the heart of this chapter. Is that verse. Going on.
The next two verses are together.
Yes.
Tasmat tvamish muttishta yasho labhasva jitva shatrun bhung. Wow. Jitva shatrun bhungshwarajam samriddham mayye vaite nihata purvameva nimitta matram bhavasavyasachin dronam cha bhishmam cha jayadratham cha karnam tathanyanapi yodhaviran maya hatanstvam jahima vyathishta yudhyasva jeta sirane sapatnan. Therefore stand up and obtain fame, conquer the enemies and enjoy the flourishing kingdom. Verily by myself, they have already been slain. Be you a mere instrument, O left-handed archer. Drona, Bhishma, Jayadratha, Karna, and other brave warriors, those have already been slain by me. You do the kill, be not distressed with fear, fight, and you shall conquer your enemies in battle.
So what Krishna here is doing is summarizing how to effectively act in the world. It is Arjuna's nature, his swadharma, to be kshatriya, to be a warrior. Go do your thing. I love the way Joseph Campbell phrased it. Follow your bliss. And Krishna says, I put that desire, that passion in your heart. And in terms of the results, be they successes or failures, I am the karma phaladata. I am the giver of the fruits of action. You are a mere instrument. Will there be people in your yoga class, the next one you give? Krishna has already set it up. Whether there are not, you're just a mere instrument. Will you go off to India again or not? Krishna's already set that up. You are a mere instrument. Business deal, will it succeed or fail? Krishna's already done it. You are a mere instrument. The fruits of the action belong to God. Don't worry. Oh, Jim, should I do this or should I do that? I'm not smart enough to tell you. But I'll tell you this, it doesn't matter. Because it's already been chosen. Do as you will. If you must have an instruction, try not to be a jerk. That goes a long way in the world. But here, when Krishna says, I have already killed them, it means the Lord has already done the action. How? Let's think about it. So today, my particular actions are the fruit of the vasanas in my mind. Yesterday, I did particular actions from prior vasanas. Those vasanas were from prior actions. And it goes back and back and back for all of us. So, where did it all begin? The question is, where did the first vasana come from? I tell you, the fact that you're sitting here in my living room was set in motion at the Big Bang with an inevitable cause and effect sequence. And the Lord did it. So we want to lift our vision, to see the cosmic vision, which is to see that it's all perfect, which is different than my human ideas of good and bad. I can have a human opinion, oh, this is terrible. But if it is, if it's currently a name and form, there's no other cause than Krishna. You and I are but instruments. Nothing, absolutely nothing in God's universe happens by accident. Any thoughts on this? Now, what about suffering? What a horrible God to allow such suffering to take place in the world. Is your God a goody-goody? Does your God exist to fulfill your desires? Maybe not. And here's another very interesting fact that I have seen. I believe it is theoretically possible for us to grow spiritually through inspiration. But practically speaking, most of us don't. If everything's going swimmingly, we don't grow very much. When do we grow spiritually the most? When do we practice discrimination and dispassion? Let go. When we're suffering. Isn't that your experience? The most concrete example of this that I see in my life, many of you know that I participate a lot in AA, and I'll go to a meeting and I'll hear someone say, I'm a grateful alcoholic. What? And they tell their story and this nightmare stuff, homeless, living under a bridge, ruining their health, almost dying. But because of all that suffering, they had a spiritual experience. They got sober and they started a new way of life, which has been incredibly rich. They probably wouldn't have done that if they hadn't had the terrible suffering. I see it every day. Now, look at suffering in humanity beyond one lifetime. You oftentimes don't see the larger issue. There's an old poem written by I think it's an English poet, I can't remember who, but it has to do with our ideas about death. But it's about all of our suffering and loss. And he's talking about being at harbor and seeing the sailing ship go out and disappear over the horizon, and it's gone from view. But then at the port of arrival, they see a ship come up over the horizon and greet them and come to port. We just don't see what's over the horizon. That's all. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
This is verse 35. Sanjay Vacha Etachritva Vachanam Keshavasya Kritanjalirvepaman Manaha Kiriti Namaskritva Bhuya Evaha Krishnam Sadgadam Bhita Pranamya. Having heard that speech of Keshava, Sanjaya said, having heard that speech of Keshava or Krishna, the crowned one, Arjuna, with joined palms, trembling and prostrating himself, again addressed Krishna in a choked voice, bowing down, overwhelmed with fear.
So the ego, not penetrating deeply into the truth behind the cosmic vision, is terrified by the vision of Mahakala, the great god of time. So we see this by one of the most common depictions of the mother in Hinduism, and that's Kali. Will you describe what she traditionally looks like to us? Kali Om.
Terrifying form, dark in color, a big mouth with the tongue hanging from it, holding a severed head in one hand, a garland of skulls, frightening. One foot on Shiva's chest.
Can you share with us the symbology, the symbolism of the various parts?
Oh God, I'm not so good at that.
She's the mother, and she only, by the way, Kali is simply the feminine form of Kala. She's the divine mother, but she is time. But she's also Mother Shakti. And we're terrified of losing spouses, losing jobs, losing homes. And in the end, our own body. You go to the doctor and says, you've had a stroke. Your prostate is gone. I'm sorry, but you've got early onset Alzheimer's. Too bad we can't give you a torso transplant. Meaning the fear that happens when we confront our own. And the problem is, if we are identified with the body, the mind says to itself, if the body dies, I am no more. That's even an expression in Indian English. Oh, so and so, they are no more. It's not true. What's true is, oh, so and so, they left their body. They left it behind. They're gone. And if you think, if you have a photo of yourself 20, 30 years ago, none of us in class had kids. Where's that body? It's dead. You have a memory of it. But for one instant, have you ever stopped being you? So even though the all-devouring time is scary, And of course, the demon that she holds ultimately is the ego. In the end, the mother destroys the ego, cuts its head off. Scares us, frightens us. I have another young man I work with, and he had a big job where he made about $300,000 a year as a sales executive for a telecom company. And he got caught up in drugs, and he lost his job, and he lost his home, and he lost his partner. And he started on a whole new career. He's doing really well. But he was so identified with that former life. He says, Jim, I need a new narrative for who I am. New narrative. Not your story. Your story. He needs a story to identify with. That's ego's strategy. And I promise you, if you are seriously on the path, the mother will rip that identity to pieces. Because that's what we've asked her to do. So Arjuna sees the divine form and is terrified. But what does he do? He does the only thing that's smart that the ego can do. What does he do again and again in the verse? Anybody remember? He prostrates. Surrender. Psychologically, bow down to the process. Whatever event comes your way, ego wants to fight and struggle and dominate and control. And that is exhausting. It is like trying to do battle with the waves. No one can stop a wave from coming in. So if you want to get out further in the ocean, beyond the breaking waves, what do? Anybody go body surfing?
Surrender.
Yes. Die. So that's what we want to do. Die beneath it. Let it move. Prostrate. Again and again. It's practice in life. Any thoughts on this? Marvelous symbolism here. Next verse.
Jim, so the next verse is verse 36, and I read ahead, and the sentence doesn't make sense, so I'll read it, but
The Sanskrit doesn't make sense, or the English?
the English, but you can help interpret that, I suppose.
We'll see what happens.
Okay. Arjunavacha Sthane Rishikesh Tava Prakirtya Jagat Prahishyatyanurajyate cha Rakshamsi Bhitani Disho Dravanti Sarve Namasyanti cha Siddha Sangha. It is but meet, O Rishi.
Arjuna says, so he starts off. This is Arjuna talking now.
Arjuna said, it is but meet as in double E.
Yes.
O Rishikesh Krishna, that the world delights and rejoices in thy praise. Rakshasas fly in fear to all quarters, and all hosts of Siddhas bow to thee.
So this is an older use of the word meet. When something is meet and right, it means it is appropriate. It is the right thing to do.
Oh, okay. I didn't
That's
know.
what the word, it's an archaic use of the word meet.
Interesting. Thanks for clarifying.
So he's saying what should happen is, oh, everybody ought to be bowing down to you because you are awesome and terrible in your form. Now, this is a very interesting issue. I tell you that the mother, Kali, Krishna, they are loving. Unfortunately, most of us are afraid of God. Even if your God is just karma. And here Arjuna is singing the song of most ignorant people. That we were afraid of God, we're afraid we're going to be punished, we're afraid we're going to be alone, we're afraid we're going to suffer. If we're yogis, we're afraid we're not going to make it. I'm afraid I'm going to have to come back and do this miserable life all over again. Or I was just afraid to die. I tell you, life is safe. Life is safe. I tell you, when you see through the terrible aspect of the infinite, the message is peace be with you. Be not afraid. No matter what happens, but we have to be lifted up in our spiritual vision to see that. So here Arjuna is saying, you're so scary, everybody ought to be afraid. Because he is still seeing with two eyes, only a little bit. Going on.
Verse 37. Kasmachatena nameran mahatman gariyase brahmanopyadi kartre ananta devesha jagannivasa tamaksharam sada satat param yat. And why should they not, O great souled one, bow to thee, greater than all else, the primal cause even of Brahma, O infinite being, O Lord of lords, O abode of the universe? You are the imperishable, that which is beyond both the manifest and the unmanifest.
So here he's kind of riffing on a piece of the mythology. Brahma, the creator, is, if I recall the story, isn't he born from the navel of Vishnu? Isn't that right? Yeah. So we can look at that. That's the symbolism, that out of Vishnu, and Krishna, of course, is an incarnation of Vishnu. But the deeper meaning is this. even the creative force in the universe comes from consciousness. And the truth is, with all these divine beings, the Rakshasas and the Yakshas and everything in the last verse, they bow not from fear, but because Krishna is the divine controller. Krishna as Ishvara, the Lord, the controller of everything. He is the Lord of the manifest, all the names and the form, and the unmanifest, the avyakta, meaning the primordial potentiality of everything. All of that exists in consciousness. So the other deep point that we're invited to meditate on here, it's what I call the Mahamudra. It's a term I've shamelessly stolen from Tantric Buddhism. A mudra is a gesture. We make gestures to invoke energy. Originally, it was the other way around. People felt Shakti move through the body, and it moved them into gestures. The mudra is actually initially a response to Shakti. Later, it becomes a way to invoke Shakti. Does that make sense? Everybody understand what I said?
Yes.
Okay. Maha means great. The phenomenal universe is the great gesture of God. It is a response to Shakti. Now, Shakti is intelligent. It knows where to go. It knows what to do. Always. You do not have to say, cells in my finger divide. They're doing it without your conscious knowledge. They're intelligent. The sun is shining. Galaxies are spinning. Flowers are blooming. Elephants are elephanting. I was watching videos today of mother elephants giving birth. It is so cool to watch a mother elephant in the wild. You know what's really cool? All the other female elephants just gather around her and they're stroking her with their trunks. And then when the baby finally comes, they're cleaning the baby with their trunks. It's a whole community event. It's just marvelous to watch. The miracle of life. They didn't need a gynecologist. They knew how to do it. Caterpillars know how to become butterflies. They know how to do it. Because Shakti is intelligent and organized. And it's really running the show. Jung called this synchronicity. Something happens here, something happens there. They seem to be linked. If you're quiet and your mind's at peace, you begin to get what I call God shots. You'll be sitting at home thinking, oh, gee, I really need to figure out how to fix the such and such and so and so. Next thing you know, the phone rings. And somebody who has an answer for you. Or the opposite, you're sitting in meditation, or maybe just doing the dishes. And a friend comes to your mind and you're led to call them. They say, oh, I'm so glad you called. Blah, 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 blah. Who's had that experience? Yeah. Coincidence is only God's way of staying anonymous. Because it's all linked. It's all this wonderful divine gesture. It's a mudra. It's beautiful. It's like a dance. All of life. Including destruction. It's part of the dance. When you go to a dance concert, it's 2 hours long. What happens at 2 hours and 5 minutes? It's dead. It's over. You go home. Everything is born Brahma, exists for a while Vishnu, and is destroyed Rudra. Everything. Next verse.
Verse 38. Tvamadideva Purusha Purana Tvamasya Vishwasya Param Nidhanam Vetasi Vedyam Cha Param Cha Dhama Tvaya Tatam Vishwamananta Rupa. You are the primal God, the ancient Purusha. You are the supreme refuge of the universe. You are the knower, the knowable, and the abode supreme. By thee is the universe pervaded, O being of infinite forms.
So now in the mouth of Arjuna, he's leaving his fear behind. His vision is being lifted up because Krishna opened the eye of wisdom. And he's seeing beyond the terror and things. He sees, oh, you are the Purusha. This is a word borrowed from Sankhya philosophy. It means here the self. It means Brahma. It means consciousness. But it also means controller, the Lord of all phenomena. So let's go through these pieces. What was the first idea he introduced?
The first idea.
There was a list, and I couldn't remember them all in order.
I don't think it's easy. Yeah. So you are the primal God, the ancient Purusha.
Yes, so he described that with the like Rig Veda talks about in the Purusha Sutra, the primal, the ultimate essence of personness. We'll have a whole chapter called Purushottama, Uttama Purusha, the ultimate personness. Next idea.
You are the supreme refuge of this universe.
Yes. So, where do I ultimately go for safety, for security? There's an old maxim, no one is more frightened than a wealthy man. The person who is free from fear is the one inside who is a sannyasi, whose mind rests in the safety of Krishna. Next idea.
You are the knower, the knowable, and the abode supreme.
So all that is knowable is consciousness appearing as name and form. And you are the knower of it. Just like in the dream state, who is it who knows all the elements of the dream? I do. And all the knowables in the dream, what are they made of? Me. So also the phenomenal world is like a dream. Existing consciousness. And by the abode, where do they live? Everything is in consciousness. Is that it on this verse, or there's another piece?
There's one more line.
Okay.
By thee is the universe pervaded, O being of infinite forms.
Yes. So just as space pervades everything, we have room space, we have glass space. If I move the glass, am I moving space? No. Space is subtler than all the objects in it. Space is not affected or touched by. So also everything is in consciousness. Someone asked me, Jim, do you think the earth is a conscious being? Well, you've asked the wrong question, because the earth is in consciousness. Conscious being is everywhere, including through. All right, it's 8:00. We need to quit. What verse are we on?
We finished 38. We'll start with 39.
39 next week. We'll end here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamavaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Om.